Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Mindset Monday, which is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to chat about an interesting topic. And today, my very special guests are no strangers to Conversations with Nicole. Mr. Antonio Wyche, Miss Rebecca Fernandez, and they have been on the show before, but it's been a little minute, like kind of when I first got started with the live broadcast during the week. But they have written a book, co-authors. They are also co-owners, founders of Renewing Minds Counseling and Consulting, but they are now authors. Empowering Adaptive Leadership is the name of their book, and that is the title of our discussion today. So, tag a friend and let them know they need to be on here because this is going to be a great conversation. I know you may be thinking, like, what is that about? Well, we're going to dive in. They got modules and tenants and all of that sort of thing. So, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So, before I bring them on, I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? Let us know in the comments. Put your city and state so we can give you a shout out. We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on my LinkedIn page. So this is an interactive live. Your comments, your questions are welcome. And it's a safe space for us to engage with one another. I see my mom is on down in Miami. Thank you for being here, Chica. I love you. All right. So I know that there'll be other folks joining us, but for the sake of time, I am going to go ahead and share some of their bios. So Rebecca, an Afro-Latina born and raised in Miami, Florida. Yes, 305. Now resides in Miramar, Florida. She holds a master's degree in social work from the Florida State University. Go Noles. And is a licensed clinical social worker in both Florida and Georgia. And since 2010, she has worked extensively with individuals, families, and groups, bringing a wealth of experience to her field. As a qualified supervisor, she also mentors and oversees registered clinical social work interns in Florida. She is co-founder of Renewing Minds Counseling and Consulting Services, LLC, which she previously served as a regional executive director, where she led statewide evidence-based programs contracted with the Department of Juvenile Justice in Florida and Georgia. Currently, she holds the position of National Director of Operations for a nonprofit organization that manages federal, state, and county contracts to serve youth and their families. She is a dedicated leader, has held multiple leadership roles throughout her career. She also, in addition to her professional leadership experience, is a published author. She co-wrote Lead, Empowering Adaptive Leadership, a book that provides insight into developing strong, effective leaders in ever-changing environments. Y'all help me welcome Miss Rebecca Fernandez. Yay!
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a minute and a lot has gone on since you were last here. I'm not going to get into all of that, but I'm so glad that you are with us and I'm so excited for this conversation.
So am I. So am I. Thank you again for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. And last but not least, Mr. Antonio Wyche, who was born and raised in the big city of Lake City, Florida, currently resides in Tallahassee, holds a master's degree in clinical social work from the Florida State University, go Noles, and is a licensed clinical social worker in both Florida and Georgia. Since 2009, he has dedicated himself to serving individuals and families through a wide range of roles. He is also a qualified supervisor, mentoring registered clinical social work interns in Florida as they work towards professional licensure. Antonio began his career counseling youth and their families involved in the juvenile justice system, a mission he continues to pursue with passion. He currently serves as the regional executive director for a statewide evidence-based program operating in Florida and Georgia, which provides community-based family therapeutic services in the partnership with the Department of Juvenile Justice. In this role, he oversees more than 15 clinicians, ensuring high quality service delivery and positive outcomes for families across the region. And he is a national consultant and trainer for Functional Family Therapy LLC, offering clinical and implementation support to teams across the country and internationally. Also is the co-owner of Renewing Minds Counseling and Consulting Services, where he works as a practicing therapist with over 15 years of leadership experience in various capacities. He also has demonstrated a commitment to both clinical excellence and organizational growth, and also is a published author, furthering his mission to inspire and educate, and is passionate about leadership, counseling, and empowering individuals, families, and communities to reach their highest potential. Y'all help me welcome Antonio Wyche. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Nicole, thanks for having me.
Oh, my friend is established.
He is. Both of y'all are. It is an honor to be in your presence. All right, so we got a bunch of folks. I'm going to acknowledge them first, and then I'm going to have y'all tell us who you all are individually, not what you do, but who are you. We got Mr. Ozzie Daniel from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Thank you for being here, Ozzie. Miss Olivia Jones. Good evening, Nikki. I guess. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if she's talking about me or somebody else. Maybe she meant to say Nicole. I appreciate you being here, Olivia. Fee said she's from Tally Ho. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for being here, Fee and E. I appreciate y'all. Okay, so Olivia said good evening, Nicole. All right, must have been a slip of the fingers. It's all good. And Miss Tracy Golay is here with us this evening. All right, so we'll start with Rebecca. Rebecca, who is Rebecca Fernandez? Not what you do, but who are you?
I am a proud Afro-Latina woman. I am a mother of a soon-to-be 2-year-old, and I'm not going to even get into that because I'm gonna cry. But yeah, I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a woman and a leader. So.
Okay, nice. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Antonio. Who is Antonio? Not what you do, but who are you?
Yeah, I'm a man of faith. I'm a husband. I'm a family man, and I love to help people. I mean, I know that sounds cliche, but truly, that's one of my passions, is to see people grow and to see people change, because everyone's on a different journey, and so I'm purpose driven. I'll say that.
Okay, very good. Now tell us just a little bit about why you all started your counseling and consulting firm.
Yeah.
Well, Antonio and I, we worked together since 2014, and we started in therapeutic roles. And it's always been a conversation of ours to take what we do and touch more lives than the lives we were touching at that present moment. We felt that we had a lot more to offer. We both have a passion for helping individuals. And so in 2020, the opportunity presented itself for us to embark on this journey and start Renewing Minds Counseling and Consulting Services. And it's just been growing from there. Honestly, it just started as a random conversation. Antonio likes sparking up random conversations. That's what he does. And so we just had a random conversation about our passions. And from there, it just developed into this vision. And it finally came to life in 2020.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I would definitely co-sign on that. I think, when you have someone that's supportive, that you click with, we all have some of the same visions. there's no other route than just to move forward, right? And so this is something that's been on our radar for a while in terms of starting something up, because we do have expertise that we would love to share with the community, but we also have a passion, like I said, for seeing change. And so it's better to have two people than one, always from that standpoint. And this is something we definitely, appreciate about each other, because I think when I'm lacking somewhere, Rebecca can fill in the gap, and when she's lacking somewhere, I can fill in the gap. And so I think it's just a partnership that makes it successful. So
Nice. Now tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, I'll say this. Leadership isn't for everyone, but there's a caveat to that, right? So there's this kind of cliche or some type of saying that you're either born with leadership, like some people are born leaders. I don't necessarily believe that. I believe leadership is taught through experience, but also taught through your failures and your successes. And so the book really centers around our experience as leaders, because we started off not knowing what a leader was and how to lead people and how to work with difficult staff members. Like, we had to learn those things through experience, but it took humility and grace for us to understand that. And so really the book came out of both of our experiences, just dealing with staff that you see potential in, but they didn't always have the best support systems. And so giving people a guideline and a way to look forward, to understand, well, how should I lead this individual that I oversee? And this isn't just, related to work. This can also translate to your personal life, right? Friends, family, because in some capacity in our lives, we all lead someone, right? And so the book came out of that, right? Our experiences as workers, but also social workers, because a lot of the principles that we have in the book stem from like our experience in the social work field and therapy field.
Nice. Okay, that's fair. Love it. So the book is really part of the title of the book, is our topic for tonight: empowering adaptive leadership. So I see someone else who has joined us that I want to acknowledge, Miss Katrina Cohens, who is in Macon, Georgia. Thank you for being here tonight. So before we dive in, y'all know I got to read my disclaimer, because I don't want nobody to think we got counseling and therapy going on. We're going to talk about some of that a little bit, maybe. But you need to get with a counselor, get with a therapist. Okay, so all topics, past, present, and future, on Conversations with Nicole are for informational purposes only. They are not to be used as a diagnosis, for treatment, or an answer to any personal issues related to the topic being discussed before, during, or after the program. All right, I said it. So let's dive in. So we are talking empowering adaptive leadership. What, you hear that term, but what is that? What is adaptive leadership?
When I think of adaptive leadership, let's start looking at the term adaptive, right?
Okay.
I feel that when you are leading individuals, everyone on the team, every individual has their own unique needs and their own unique strengths as well. So when you have a strong leader, I believe that it is important and imperative to really take focus to each person's individual needs and each individual's strengths. And so adaptive leadership does just that. It meets individuals where they are, what their needs may be, and kind of focuses in on how they can develop them to really increase their strengths and support them in ways where they may be weak.
Okay.
That's my perspective of it. Antonio, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah. I think when we think about leadership and we think about, agencies and organizations, a lot changed during COVID, right? People started working less in the office. They started working more remotely. And that required less of this kind of top-down approach where I'm telling people what to do. I have a tightrope on how they move. And it required them to adapt, because now you can't see people in an office, and you have to find out how to still supervise them remotely while they're working from home. And I think this was something that was inevitable. And so when we think about adaptive leadership, it's around meeting the needs of your staff. But let's make it a little bit more personal, right? If I have two brothers, and if anyone has brothers, we know that they can be. I'm the oldest, by the way, so they lean on me for a lot of things.
Right.
But I love both of them the same, but I have to adapt to them differently because they have different personalities. If I treated my younger brother the same as my middle brother, it probably won't work out because my middle brother is a little bit more stubborn. And so I have to adapt how I respond to each one of those individuals. And this is why I said earlier, it's not about, just organizational leadership. This is also transferable and relatable to like life in general. So when we think about adapting, it's that, like, how can I meet the person's needs? And maybe, just maybe, I know this is hard, how do I set my own needs aside? How do I look at this from a person-centered approach, right? Not just I need you to do this for me, but how am I actually serving this individual? And I think if you look at their needs, if you look at what they require, it allows you to see their potential. So when I think of adaptive leadership, I think of that. But it takes some observation and humility to look at that.
Absolutely. Great points. So we got a few more folks that have joined us. Miss Sharice Du Bois, who's in Atlanta. Thank you for being here. Miss Jeanette Tullis in Miami Gardens. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Anika Fields, who's here in Tallahassee and the director of the FAMU Counseling Center. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Fields, and Dr. Kendra Mitchell, who is also a FAMU team and staff member. She said, so is the goal for this book to show people how to lean into adaptive leadership? And good evening. So what y'all got? Is it to show them how to lean into it?
So that it's an actual framework in applying adaptive leadership. So this book teaches leaders a way in which they can develop themselves as well as individuals on their teams and their teams to lead. And so it utilizes an adaptive leadership format, but it really focuses on four major tenets of our leadership approach, which is listening, empathy, accountability, and decisiveness. So it really focuses on utilizing those major principles throughout the approach of adapting to each individual's needs and the team's needs as well.
Okay, very good. Antonio, you want to add something?
Yeah, and I appreciate the question because, it's, I've been getting a lot of colleagues to say when they read leadership books, they have to decipher what they're taking away from it. And we wanted to develop something that was super easy to use, to utilize, but also easy to understand, where my little cousin could use it, right? But it really stems from treating people with respect. I think as a leader, if you're not treating people with respect, the rest nothing's going to work, right? And I recently heard, you don't ask for respect, you earn it. And as I think as a leader, a lot of times we're asking people to respect us, when in reality, people will respect you if they respect you, and so
how you respect them too, right? Like people respect you based on the respect that you've provided to them and earned. So
absolutely.
True.
And so the framework comes out of that. It's just, how should we be treating each other? Right?
Okay. All right. Very good. So Dr. K, she said, okay, thank you. So the empowering is for the individual and the team. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. Greetings, RLB. Thank you for being here. Amanda Sheffield, both great answers, she said. And we got Driana on with us, who is here in Tallahassee. Thank you for being here, as well as Amanda. Thank you for being here. So let's talk about these tenets. So you mentioned listening, empathy, accountability, and decisiveness. I got my notebook ready.
Ready?
So let's go. What y'all got?
Well, I'll say this, Nicole. You kind of know me a little bit, but I like to do some Socratic questioning. So I'm gonna ask you:
Let's do it.
when you hear listening, what comes to mind?
When I hear listening, I actually think active listening. And I think about hearing what's being said, but hearing what's not being said as well.
Yeah, it's like you're reading our minds. Yes.
Absolutely.
When you're working with anyone, a lot of times, 90% of how they respond is usually through nonverbals,
Mhm.
right? And so those are things that a very intuitive person can pick up on. But you don't have to necessarily always be intuitive. It's just being understanding that at the same time, nobody's really different. Like we all have these things that we hide, that we kind of censor part of ourselves. And so a lot of how people are responding is because they're probably struggling with something that they don't want to talk about. And they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be perceived a certain way, especially by your boss or your mother or your father, because those are leaders too, or your bigger brother, because those are leaders too. And so they don't want to be perceived a certain way. And so when we think of listening, it's just not what people are saying. It's like you said, right? It's perceiving what are they not saying. So when a person doesn't show up for work, or they keep missing work, or they keep, if you're doing remote work, right, they keep turning off their camera, or they're showing up late for work sometimes. As a leader, we have to think, well, what are they saying? What am I taking away from that? How can I truly listen to those behaviors? Because a lot of times there's shame associated with whatever's behind it, right? And so listening is just simply hearing that. Right? What is this telling me?
Let me send this to some of my coworkers. Ooh, let me, you know what? Listen, I don't know if y'all saw the show that I had with Antonio and Rebecca the last time, but they was dropping gems. So I'm telling y'all better get ready. Get ready. Is all I'm saying. Ozzy said nobody cares how much you know until they see how much you care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I think of listening as a leader, I consider the fact that listening is foundational to building that relationship with the person. If a person feels that they can come to you and be heard, free from distractions, and with the purpose of understanding them, because I think there's a difference, right? You can listen, but that doesn't mean you're trying to listen to understand. Red flag listening is a thing. But if you listen with the intention of really truly understanding the message, I think that you have the ability to make drastic change. You can really, really impact individuals' lives by doing so. It's the foundation to trust and understanding. Listening is where it all begins.
That's powerful. Listening is the foundation to trust and understanding. So I'm gonna put somebody on the spot real quick. I was talking to a brother today who has I guess it's like a coaching business called Just an Ear, and he is wanting to be a professional listener. And so he was kind of downplaying it, and I was like, "No, you are like on to something." I said, because people really do want to be heard. They ruminate in their minds, they play the same things over and over and over and over and over again, and oftentimes feel like there's nobody to hear what it is that's on their hearts and minds. And so holding space for people, and this will be in a coaching capacity, not in a counseling capacity. That's an important job. That's an important role.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll say this as well, and I thank you for sharing that, Nicole. There are certain people that have superpowers. And if anybody on this call has ever been out to a restaurant or just out, and you have people that just naturally come up to you and start talking about their lives. This could be family, this could be friends, this could be random strangers. You have an aura about you that they sense.
Mm-hmm.
It might be how you look, right? It might be how you present yourself, but they feel safe enough to come and talk to you about some of their problem, right? And so when he talked about a professional listener, I think that's a superpower that sometimes we do take for granted, right? Because it isn't just therapists that are good at listening. Right? This is a common skill that I think all of us could benefit from, right? When I say superpower, it really is a superpower. I think sometimes it's a God-given gift that people have this innate ability to understand and listen. So just wanted
Yes.
to throw that out.
No, appreciate that. I really do. So maybe some folks on the in the live may have that superpower. And so you may have not have thought of it as such, but like you said, there's an aura about you. There's, something that makes people feel comfortable talking about their life or their experiences, right? So Ozzy said all the time. Okay. Nice. And Deanna, thank you for being here. She typed in your statement about listening is the foundation to trust and understanding. I think that is such a profound statement. So thank you for sharing that. Olivia, listening is a skill I work on continuously. Yes, love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right. All right. So anything else you all would have us know about listening?
It is a skill, like Antonio mentioned, and some people have it, but it is something, and thank you for your comment, because I think it's true, is that something people can work on. Not everyone may have the natural God-given skill of listening, but in the book, we outline some ways in which individuals can develop effective listening. Because I think there's major parts to being effective in your listening. And I think people can truly dedicate time to working on that and being better at it.
So if you don't mind, we don't want you to give the whole book away, but give us a few things that can be done to enhance our listening skills.
Well, one of them you said earlier, right? When Antonio asked you to describe listening, it's that active listening, right? So maintaining eye contact, giving a head nod or a smile, leaning in, right? So leaning in to just show the person you're really there in the moment with them. Using phrases to summarize or kind of reiterate the messages that you're hearing. Those are all ways to just lay the start to having a person feel comfortable to share openly.
Yes.
I'll add to that as well. I think one of the first things to consider, and the thing that gets in the way of listening, is ego.
Mm-hmm.
In the therapy field, all ego means is just self.
Yep.
Right? I'm letting myself get in the way of listening to this individual. And so when we think of, this idea of listening with positive regard, I'm still learning that too, right? Like even working with my wife, I'm like, okay, I can't give advice. I have to stay back from giving advice. Just let me acknowledge and hear what she's saying, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it's preventing ourselves from giving advice too soon and just allowing that person to talk without judgment, right? And so sometimes listening isn't always jumping in and talking. It's simply being present and giving a person a safe space to talk.
That's it.
That's really good. I will say that I believe that I possess this superpower that you mentioned, Antonio. And sometimes I want to be heard. Yeah, sometimes I want to be heard. And
A lot
so,
of people, our listeners, want to be heard because they feel like they're constantly hearing other people's stuff. And it's like, when do I get the space to say something?
yeah. Yeah. So, I definitely can relate to the whole ego getting in the way of listening, because oftentimes when I am listening to people, even if I may say something about myself, and I know some of it is them trying to be relatable, but they will turn it into a conversation about them. Yeah.
That's common. And like you said, it is relatable. I think when you consider the listening aspect, it does require you to step aside from your viewpoints and your beliefs, not giving advice, like Antonio said. And so maybe Nicole, you're just a God-given gift of being a listener, and that's just the role you play because you create a space where so many people do feel comfortable sharing and want to share so much about themselves.
Yeah. And I'm good with it. Really for the most part, I really am good with it,
Mhm.
But there are times when I would like to share.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll put this out here, Nicole, part of, because we've, dealt with a lot of staff members, new experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's this kind of belief, and I know we have some therapists on the call as well, but there's this belief that therapists give advice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a misconception. Therapists actually don't give advice.
Mm-hmm.
They empower the person to figure out their own solution.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that requires us to listen with unconditional positive regard to that individual story.
Mm-hmm.
But also empowering them to really think on their own. So this requires us to be transparent in our communication. So an example that you talked about was, if I want to be heard, let me actually speak that.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the idea of the unspoken language around listening.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I have something to say, and so I want to throw something out there. Is it okay if I do that?
Mm-hmm.
So asking for permission actually tricks them
Mm-hmm.
into thinking that they're giving you something, right? But it's a respect. It's a respect thing. I'm wanting to talk, but I'm doing it in a way that gets them to see, no, this is a collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I appreciate you saying that, because a lot of times we feel that way. I'm listening to you, but anytime I want to talk about myself, it turns back around where you're talking about yourself. And now I'm still having to figure out how to navigate through that relationship.
Yes.
So as we can see, listening is very complicated, but it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to overthink it.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Anika said, absolutely, Antonio. Yes. All right. Well, those were good. And I'm sure there's probably more, but y'all have to get the book. Listen, we are already more than halfway through this conversation, and we only have gotten to the first tenet. Oh my goodness. Okay. So let's move on to empathy. Empathy. So let's get the viewers involved. What do you consider empathy to be? How do you define empathy? Let us know in the comments. Amanda already jumping the gun. Where can we get a copy? We're gonna tell you in just a little bit. So for those of you, and I skipped all over this. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm on with Antonio Wyche, Rebecca Fernandez, and we are talking about empowering adaptive leadership, which is part of their book that they just wrote, and it has been released. And so far, we've talked about listening. We still have empathy, accountability, and decisiveness to discuss. All right. So let me know in the comments, empathy. How do you define it? What is empathy to you? What is empathy to you? All right. We got Mr. Marcus Boston on the line. He said, whenever I'm sharing my feelings and they shift the conversation about themselves, I say, I'm not finished. I make sure I'm heard. Okay. All right. We appreciate that tip.
Yeah. And I'm going to give Marcus, Marcus looks like he's an author too. So congrats, man.
He is, yeah.
A lot of times when that takes place, I'll jump in and say, I notice anytime I try to talk about my issues, it kind of comes back to you. And I'm wondering where that comes from.
Ooh.
So in a sense, yes, I could tell them I need to talk, but now I'm getting down to the core of why you keep interrupting. But I'm doing it in a way that gets them to reflect. Okay, why do I keep jumping in? What do you feel like I'm not hearing?
That's good.
That makes you keep repeating yourself, right? So it allows me now to reflect on that, right? So that's a good point, Marcus.
That's really good. Yes. Where does that come from? Yes. All right. Olivia, empathy, being able to sense another's feelings and recognize and understand. Okay. Thank you for that definition.
Absolutely.
Having compassion and understanding for others. Okay. Thank you for that definition. Appreciate it. RLB. I think that's in Savannah. All right. Anybody else? Empathy. What's empathy? What's empathy? Let us know. What are your thoughts about it? Yes, I know it's you, Rhonda. All right. Anybody else? Empathy, empathy. All right. Maybe they'll chime in a little later. So, what would y'all have us know about empathy?
Well, I think if you notice in both of those comments that you shared, and thank you both for providing your definitions, but one word that stood out in both of them was understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we consider empathy, when we wrote the book, what we considered empathy is being able to connect with someone's feelings and then understanding them, right?
Okay.
So really truly taking the time to understand their perspective, their experience, the way they feel. Making someone feel heard goes beyond just the first part, which is just listening to it. Now, empathy takes it to that next step, which is I've heard what you had to say. How do I connect to it? How do I relate to it? How do I understand it? What do I interpret from what you've given me? And I think that allows us to then develop that trust. The listening was the foundation, but the
Mm-hmm.
empathy gives us more of the development of the trust in that relationship.
Yeah. Deanna said acknowledging and understanding others' feelings. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
Without judgment.
Mm.
Without judgment. Okay.
And we can remember, listening can be non-verbal.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're wanting to understand someone and we're wanting them to see that I understand you, facial expressions can give off a lack of empathy too,
Oh boy.
right? So if I make a face like, okay, that's obviously judgment. we all do it. We're human beings, right?
Oh
It's about just being honest with ourselves, but also being present
yeah.
and honest, right? And so those nonverbal reactions also exude a level of empathy. So, like Rebecca mentioned, like, am I getting closer to the screen, right, when you talk, or if I'm in person, am I moving closer in body language, right?
Yeah.
Am I showing that I truly understand? There are times that I don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
and this is important to show empathy as well. To
Yeah.
say that I don't understand, right? Look, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I appreciate you being vulnerable with me. But there are some things that I just can't understand, and so I need more clarity.
Mm.
That's showing humility and empathy that I actually don't understand you, but I'm wanting to know more, right?
Yeah.
And so empathy can be understanding. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced these things along with you before. I have
Yeah.
an experience that we share, but it could also exude that I don't understand. And sometimes people are more likely to understand you if you do that, right? They're likely to see that you have empathy. So
Mm-hmm.
to throw that out there too is empathy can be both sides.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Marcus said empathy is having understanding their position without making them feel negative.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about support, right? So when we're showing empathy, empathy is really giving the opportunity for a person to feel supported. It's
Mm-hmm.
connecting to that individual's feelings. Like Antonio said, you might not understand what they're feeling, but simply acknowledging, hey, I noticed that you may be frustrated. Is there anything I can do to help? Just acknowledging what they're feeling can go a long way. And not judging that, right? It makes them feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rebecca. As you heard, we did family therapy, both Rebecca and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times when I was younger, families, mothers, fathers, they would say, "Do you have kids?" Now, I don't have kids, right? I didn't have kids then. The quick response would be, "No, I don't have kids."
Mm-hmm.
But instead of saying that, I responded, "You know what? That's a great question. And I'm wondering if you're saying that because you want someone to truly feel you and understand your experience. And I think you're also wanting me to understand your experience because there are some things that I might miss.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even answer the question, but I know why they asked that question. Right. And so just saying that gives a level of empathy. Even if I don't have kids, I'm showing understanding that it's not about me having kids at all. It's actually about you wanting someone to understand your plight. And you want to trust that that person understands it.
That's good.
So I wanted to give an example of sometimes how that might come up in real life. And not just families, but people do it us all the time, right? Like we have family members, friends. But you don't understand that. You can't, you don't understand what I'm going through. How many times have we heard that? Right. And the response could be, you're actually right. I don't understand. So help me understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I thought of is the fact that earlier we were talking about ego with listening, right? I think when you're showing empathy, it's checking your ego there too. Because in that moment, it's not about how you feel. It's not how you think. It's not about your perspective. It's not about your experience. It's all about theirs. And really, truly acknowledging and understanding it. That's it. It takes you completely out of the equation. And really, when we bring it back to a leadership perspective, if you have a team, you want to know more about your team. You want to know where you can lean on them. That means taking you out of the equation. You have a task. We all have this goal that needs to be met. If we remove that, how can we meet that? I need to focus on my team. I can't focus on me and what I need. I need to focus on them. And so I think empathy means checking your ego at the door, for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, that's good too. Okay. So checking that ego at the door. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Still got 2 more to go.
Yeah, we're gonna get to them. I promise we're gonna get to them.
Okay.
So there are some challenges to like empathy because sometimes we don't have the battery, the capacity to sometimes be empathetic. And look, we've all been there, right? And being empathetic requires you to to acknowledge that like I don't always have the capacity to sometimes understand. I don't have the capacity to give what this person is requesting of me. And obviously that's a personal thing, but like Rebecca said, that's also sometimes ego as well, right? Like I don't have the capacity. You know what? Well, let me not talk. Let me just listen, right? And so being able to come from that standpoint, I think that sometimes presents challenges for people that want to be empathetic because sometimes they don't always understand. They don't want to understand, right? Especially when we're in some heated debates and arguments. And it prevents them from going back to that first one. Well, how can you truly understand if we're not listening to that individual?
For sure. Deanna said empathy means checking your ego at the door. All right. So she's my scribe tonight.
She's dropping the gems she hears.
Yes, for sure. All right. So what's next? We got accountability. Ooh, this is a tough one right here.
Let's ask the group. What do y'all, when you hear accountability, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Sum it up in one word.
All right.
You can't use accountability.
Accountability in one word. Go in the comments. Give us one word for accountability. Accountability. Let us know. All right. Ownership. Yes. Thank you for that, Tiffany. Yes. Ownership. Okay. Ownership is coming up. All right.
Hey.
Check in. Okay. Yes. I've heard check in.
I think some people have read the book already.
Okay. All right. Well, I think when I think accountability, I think responsibility. Yeah. Taking responsibility for it all. 5 words. Thank you, Ozzy. All right. Rhonda, acceptance. Okay. Nice. Marcus, honesty. Tatiana, awareness. Okay. Thank you for that.
Miss Wyche.
Oh,
Mrs. Wyche.
okay. Hey, thank you for lending us Antonio tonight. We
In
appreciate
the
you.
building.
All
We won't
right.
keep you too long.
Yes. We got Ishmael, my freshman brother on in Gainesville. He said being empathetic for me as a leader has been utilized more for when a tough decision has to be made. You're doing it with compassion and reasonable understanding. Yes, well said, Ish. Thank you so much for that. All right, Katrina, for accountability, she says support. Nice. Thank you for that. All right. So we got a lot of ownership. She laughed. We got a lot of ownership. People defining accountability as ownership. So what you
Yes.
got for us? What you got?
So I think it's just that. Like Antonio mentioned, I mean, it seems like people have read the book, right? So accountability is just ensuring individuals feel a sense of ownership. Sometimes people on a team do feel powerless. They feel like they're just worker bees, just here to push somebody else's goal and mission. But when you bring in accountability, it allows people to take ownership for their work, their actions, and everybody could be held to consistent standards. So I think it promotes commitment and responsibility. Those are things that kind of come from having accountability on a team.
Nice.
Yeah. You ever heard that one saying, you know, people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses?
Mm.
I don't know if y'all ever heard that before, but it's stuff.
No, I have not.
I done left a couple of them.
I would say that's 90% true. Right. I mean, you know, the nature of the job, sometimes people leave. But the nature of the job can be very difficult, and people spend years on the job because they respect and they like their boss. Right? Because the boss has created a culture of not just listening and empathy, but they've also created a culture of ownership. Right? And so I love this idea. Y'all said it perfectly. How can a person take ownership? And let's be honest here, people aren't going to do that naturally.
Yeah.
What person takes ownership naturally, unless you really actually have some, you know, self-reflection, right? If you're confronted with something, you're likely to kind of go into a shell and say, okay, like you question it, right? But a good leader can help you own your stuff, right? And you know, as we talk about some of the staff that we work with, we've had people that have struggled with documentation, struggled with the clinical modality that we work with. And a lot of the times when they see that, number one, we're patient with them, but when they see that we have an approach where I'm not doing the work for you, I trust you to do the work, but I also understand that it requires you to take ownership for your own work.
Nice.
You know? And so when that takes place, they start to see their job through a different lens. It isn't, I'm working for Antonio. I'm doing the work that I feel purpose to do. And that's why people stay on jobs, because there's this ownership that they take for their own work. Take this outside of work now. Remember, I said this can be related to family.
It can.
It happens with family too. Sometimes they don't always take ownership about things, right? Yeah. But it's how we approach them as well. And I know it's a lot of responsibility on the leader, and that's the intention. Because we're not here to blame anyone. We're here to reflect on ourselves and how we're actually using this with other individuals. So it's ownership, right? It's accountability. Accountability isn't telling a person what to do or they're going to get fired. Yeah. Or if you don't do this, then there's going to be some corrective action. And I said this to Rebecca. We've had people like this, and we tend to send this message. Corrective action is accountability, but notice what it says. It's to correct the action. It's not to necessarily fire, right?
Right.
What can we do to help correct that action? And it starts with ownership. But how do we articulate that to that person?
I think a common misconception that a lot of leaders have when it comes to accountability in their role of leadership is utilizing it as a way to point out the mistakes of someone, pointing out every way they went wrong, using corrective action to say, you did this wrong, here's your reprimand, here's your punishment. I think it's a failed opportunity, because if we look back at everyone's definition of accountability, it said ownership. And it's not necessarily one person owning the other person, not the leader owning these members, right? It's each person taking their own responsibility and and ownership of their work. So really true accountability is not just pointing out the mistakes, but setting a standard and then encouraging their growth or their ability to meet that standard. So if we think about what we've talked about already, listening, empathy, and accountability, they're kind of like building blocks. If you think about it, they kind of build on each other. First, we listen to what is going on. Then we're empathetic to their own experience. But then when we're thinking about accountability, it's really allowing them to empower themselves, take ownership and say, here's what I can do differently. Here's how I can grow, and being able to support them in that process.
No, that's good. So we have a few more comments. Tiffany, she said accountability can also be positive and negative.
Absolutely.
Okay. And she said, when asking for others to be accountable, as described as ownership, it's important that they are rewarded for their efforts to take on that role. And that's not a pizza party.
Sometimes the ownership is like that reward is actually knowing that you trust me to do my job, right? Like people don't go to work because they want to be told what to do. They go to work because there's a purpose, and I get it, right? We get a paycheck, we get that, right?
Right.
But you're actually doing something. You're in some type of service. And not a lot of people like this comment, but in order for people to take ownership of their stuff, you also have to take ownership. You also have to lead by example. Do they see me take ownership for things when I mess up? Because if I don't do it, why would I expect them to do it?
Well,
We check your egos and taking personal accountability.
Listen, Lisa, yes, it is very good stuff. Thank you for being here. So let me see. Aaron Tillman, late to the party, but loving this conversation. Accountability is care. Ooh, that's good. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you. Michael Cork, lead by example. Yes, thank you, Cork. Appreciate you tuning in. All right. Deanna said, I need this book for my household.
I think everybody can use a copy.
All right. Well, we got one more tenant to go over. So can y'all hold it just for a little while longer? We're going to give the book information in just a moment. All right. So decisiveness. What do we want to say about decisiveness? Do we want to ask the viewers anything about decisiveness?
Yeah, what is your understanding of this? Well, you know what? How do you practice decisiveness?
How do you practice decisiveness? That's good.
Yep. There you go.
It is a skill.
It is a skill.
Right.
Yeah. So let us know in the comments, if you don't mind. Safe space, no judgment. How do you practice decisiveness? All right. I think Ish is chiming in from another conversation, but he said rewarded can be acknowledgement of the specific, non-generic gratitude for them taking on the ownership, not necessarily monetary. Agreed.
I agree.
Agreed. I think we found during the pandemic that time was the reward.
Very much so.
Time and location. Like people did not want to go back to the office.
Yeah.
Is not doing it. So, yeah. All right. Decisiveness. How do you practice decisiveness? We got a whole bunch of undecided people on this line.
Maybe to help kind of spark some thought, I think it's important for us to talk about decisiveness as we described it, right? So we consider being decisive is making not hasty decisions. It's not just picking something and going for it, but it's really being well informed and choosing a course of action that helps everyone in the group, right? That's what a good leader does. They look at everyone at large, and they move forward without hesitation. There's a confidence that comes from being decisive.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hesitation. You have to find the information and pick the best course of action and go for it. Full force. I think that's how we kind of looked at it. It's kind of like a calculated decision making.
Okay. Nice. So Antonio, I know you want to say something, but I want to get some of these comments. Cork, he says standards, policies, and procedures help with decisiveness and prevents wishy-washiness. Okay.
Absolutely.
Tiffany, he is preaching and she is speaking facts. Wonderful. Thank you, Tiffany. Olivia, making a maybe conservative judgment at the appropriate time for effective results. Decisiveness. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Rhonda, weighing the pros and cons of my decisions, gathering information before making a decision. Nice. Thank you for that. And Aaron, I agree. Decisiveness is methodical, but also comes with trial and error. Mm-hmm. All right. What you got, Antonio?
There are people that pretend to be decisive.
Ooh. Wait a minute.
I'm gonna just let that be.
Wait a minute, Antonio. Did you say the people pretend? Hold on. You stepping on some toes now, for real. Wait a minute. What you mean they to pretend? What you mean by that?
Well, when you think about decisiveness, sometimes people look at it as a badge of honor. Oh, I'm decisive. Right? I can make quick decisions. And it's not as simple as what we're going to eat tonight. What we're going to eat for dinner tonight. I know my wife looks at it as decisive because sometimes
that is a whole dilemma in the household about what we gonna eat tonight. People get in their feelings about it. Like I decided yesterday, you decide today. Don't you tell me you don't know, and then when I decide, you be like, "Oh, I ain't want that."
Right, exactly.
That is a whole
thing.
So I'm bringing that up because there's this facade that I'm decisive, I have power. And decisiveness isn't about power, right? It's about understanding, looking at the pros and the cons, getting consultation from others around you. And what better people to get consultation from than the people that you supervise, that you're leaders over, or even that you collaborate with, right? So it isn't, and Rebecca said it very beautifully, it isn't hasty decisions, right? It's very thoughtful decisions. And also being decisive can mean I'm going to take my time.
Yes.
You know what? I'm not going to make a decision right now. I'm going to wait. I'll give you a good example and I'll move on. Sending an email too quickly.
Ooh. Yes.
So I'm in my feelings. I'm going to send an email. Oh, I should have never sent that email. Well, guess what? That was a hasty decision. Instead of being decisive and saying, you know what, I'm going to give myself an hour. And if I still feel the same way, maybe I'm going to consult with Rebecca to I'm going to have her read this email first before I send it. That's making decisive decisions. It isn't sending the email. It's being decisive in the steps that I take before I actually send the email. Right.
Yep.
And so it isn't about power. It's really about humility and understanding that my actions have consequences. And so how do not consequences for myself, but consequences of people around me.
Gotcha. Okay. So there are a few comments. Ozzy said, staying focused on what matters and completing any given task. We got Brother Warren Cave who's joined us. Thank you for being here. She said, decisiveness is ensuring you have considered as many viewpoints as possible. When making the decision, acknowledge the various positions that you entertain. Always make sure your team feels heard. Yes. Making a decision and being confident in your choice. Yes, thank you. Tiffany Warren says, sounds like I've missed some great discussion. Thank God I can go back and listen. Yes, you can. Marcus, there are times when I need to think about it first prior to making a decision. Yes. Olivia, this is good. That's good. Thank you, Olivia. Decisive means take your time. Amanda, you must be thoughtful and intentional, not impulsive. So I'm gonna play angel's advocate in just a minute. And we got Dr. G with St. Fort with us. Thank you for being here. She said he dropped the mic with that decisive point. Yes, he did. So I'm gonna play Angel's Advocate here, because this is the point that I'm about to make. I have heard quite often from the female gender in dealing with the male gender, who they have asked about cutting the yard or fixing that broken garage door open up. So whatever it is, and he has not said anything, or it's taking him a week, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months to do whatever the thing is. Okay. All right. Y'all feel what I'm putting down here, right?
Yes, I do.
So I have asked men about this whole, delay in responding, because to the woman, it's looking like it's no action taking place. Like, well, what's going on? Because we need to get this done. I don't get it. And so I have heard that there is some concern amongst the brethren uh about maybe making an incorrect decision, or being in error and not wanting to hear, I told you so, or these types of things. So I'm gonna ask the brethren, that's the brother that's on the live right now. I want you to, if you don't mind, just shed some light, just enlighten us, if you don't mind. We're a little over our time, but I think this is worth kind of fleshing out just a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Can I be honest? I'm gonna be honest with you now.
Yeah, please.
Y'all accept it? Y'all accept it?
We got it.
We are listening.
We are listening.
And I'm not saying this just because we have women on the call. I'm actually being honest with it. Sometimes it's laziness. Look, if you want to have an honest conversation around it, I mean, that's kind of, I don't want to do it right now, right? But someone said it in the chat box. It does come with consequences.
It does.
It does come with consequences. And so later on, now when my wife's saying, look, you promised me you were going to do this, it isn't about the task. It's about doing something that you say you're going to do. That, to me, that's decisiveness. But sometimes, look, as a man, I want to play my PlayStation.
They're gonna take your man card in a minute.
But I always tell a man, look, do what you're going to say. It might not be at that specific time, but you need to do what you're going to say, right? Because it shows trust, it shows reliability, and those are all things that a leader does, right? They don't always do it maybe at that specific time, but if they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it, and they're going to be decisive in that, right? And you might do it when your wife's not looking, and if she's like, "Oh, you actually did it. Okay, cool."
I think that's part of it too. Y'all like the element of surprise. Like when she was least expecting it, I'm like, boom, there it is. Like, oh,
I'll take that, Nicole.
I'm a ride with Antonio's first point, laziness, but we're gonna leave it there.
But we're gonna be strength-based. We're gonna be strength-based. That's laziness, but I think Aaron said it the best. We just like to chill.
Okay, I like that. Well, as the leaders of the household, I think it's important to be decisive and provide deadlines to your female counterparts, because we want to know. We just want to make sure this is still flowing, and we have things to put our attention to. So do us all a favor. Let me know when you're going to be getting around to that one. Thank you.
Nice. Love it. All right.
I want to make a point, Nicole, in just terms of the decisiveness part. Not just saying I'm going to do things, but Rebecca made a great point. Sometimes letting them know when you're going to do it, because that gives more trust. And if I said I'm going to do it at 5 p.m., I'm either going to do it before 5 p.m. or I'm going to have it done at 5 p.m., right? And so that creates more accountability. I think sometimes when we don't give those time frames, it's because we're insecure about doing it in the first place.
Ooh.
We might not trust ourselves to actually do it when we say we're going to do it, which this has some nobility because we don't want to let the person down, but it also creates some
Distrust.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We talking about relationships or we talking about leadership?
Look, all of it.
Don't class.
It is all related. All related. Look, people chiming in left and right. Now, look at y'all. Uh-huh. All right. I'm gonna go back to Eric York. Thank you for joining us. He said decisiveness, making skills, making strategic thought decisions by using thoughts and facts to determine the wants versus needs or the advantages and the disadvantages of a situation. Gotcha. And to me, that's like counting up the costs, right? Mm-hmm. And so we don't want to make a decision that's in haste or that's going to negatively affect the team, the family, whatever, right? So Mrs. White said he is a man of his word 1000%. Love it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully I can be there.
Indeed, Anika, yes. Then tell me when you're going to do it. Okay, so I'm hearing some kind of deadlines as it relates to it. Olivia, there are times when you have to make a decision and incorporate empathy and understanding when making a decision. Absolutely. Yes. All right, Ozzy, break out the 5 love languages. Hey, 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 hey. Yes, Ozzy, all of that. All right, Amanda, put it in writing. Okay. That might work for some folks. All right, Warren, decisiveness is really having an agreement beforehand that is not broken unless absolutely mandatory. Okay, thank you for that. He said, but if it can't be made, communication must be made immediately. I think that is also a key thing as well. You know, if the plan changes, let us know. That's all. Yeah. Aaron, our wives see us as them and not as themselves, but we have to anticipate what they need.
And it requires us to listen, Aaron, right? Like sometimes they say things, but what are they really saying?
I don't even want to put this last comment up, but I am. It says sometimes it's calculated similar to intentionality, not doing something well, so to not be asked to do other things. Got it. Okay. Aaron says, say it again. Olivia said, especially for our leaders, and this is a comment that I did not want to put up. Just wait till I get it done and hush.
Okay, Mr. Court. Got it.
Foolish.
Make sure you earn that respect before you come in there with these harsh statements now.
Look, he's a doer. He say, I'm going to get it done and just wait on it.
Okay, let's see how that goes over later.
Aaron said, what's the real question behind the question? I already told you. I already told you what it was, but hey, yeah, I want to play like y'all don't know what we talking about, but okay, whatever. Anywho, all right. Anything else do we want to mention as it relates to decisiveness? I know we are 8 minutes past our time, so I appreciate y'all hanging in there with us. Amanda is laughing at y'all. Aaron is laughing.
I didn't say this, but this is for me personally. I'm only speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Pray about it.
Hey, that part.
I think pray about it. And prayer isn't just asking for things; it's meditating. You're seeing it. God gave us the vision to see things before they happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you're meditating on that vision of, I see it. I see these possibilities. Mm-hmm. Which one is less likely to hurt the majority of my group?
Yes.
And not everyone's going to be satisfied with your decisive decision, but it will benefit, right? The total group. So, and I know that's debatable, right? But you have to pray about things too. That's just my firm belief.
Agreed. Agreed. All right.
Don't pray and sit on it though, because faith without works is dead. It's your responsibility to make the decision.
Come on. Deacon Antonio. All right. So we have covered it. Empowering adaptive leadership, listening, empathy, accountability, decisiveness. I think this was a great conversation. So folks are giving some amens and preach comments, but I'm going to give you all an opportunity to give some closing remarks. So
my closing remark is just this. We've talked about the 4 tenets that we utilize in our book, Lead Empowering Adaptive Leadership. None of them, we didn't have a conversation about either of them without including another. And I think that's important to point out because each of these connect to each other and really truly build the foundation to a strong individual, a strong team, an empowered team. And it meets each person's individual needs. So listening, empathy, accountability, and decisiveness, they all go hand in hand. And if you would like to be a strong, adaptive leader, I really think you're encouraged to purchase our book.
yes. Okay, nice.
I'll say this, a lot of the tenets that we talked about, they weren't complicated. Like I could ask any person on this call and they could repeat them back to us.
Mm-hmm.
And because what that shows is this is something that we should be doing anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
With people that we talk to. And so when we think about these 4 tenets, it's what I urge y'all to do is really be intentional. And what I meant by practice, like next time you talk to someone, just actively listen. Don't say anything. Prevent yourself from talking and just really hear what they're saying verbally and non-verbally. And that will start the chain reaction to you actually truly understanding what they're trying to say. That's not always easy. I'm not promising that that's going to be a quick fix. But these tenets help us to not just lead people, but also live by example. Who wants to lead people when they're not doing what they preach?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're probably going to feel convicted. And so what I urge is just practice these 4 tenets next time. It could be with your son, it could be with your daughter, it could be with your mama, whatever. Practice them and see how they go.
Nice. Well, I want to thank you both for being my guest tonight. This has been a great conversation as usual. And y'all did not mention how people can connect with you, but I'm scrolling on across the bottom there. Renewing Minds ccs.com is the website. Renewing Minds ccs@gmail.com is the email address. So folks can hit you up there. Go ahead.
And Nicole, one thing we didn't mention is we do offer trainings. And so if your company or you have an organization that's interested in improving leadership, we scale our training and we adapt it to your agency or site, right? And so if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to reach out.
Nice. And then the link for the book is actually in the regular chat. So I know you can't get it from here in terms of clicking on it, but you can get it on Amazon. I missed the first part. It's lead, right? Okay. So just go to the link. I put it again in the comments on Facebook and on Instagram. So Amanda, she said, can we get our copy signed? I'm picking up a few, and it looks like Brother Aaron could use one too. Aaron said, Sister Amanda, count me in. Yes, love it. Absolutely. All right. So folks are clapping us up, giving us great conversation. I really do hope you all benefited from this and will remember our tenets that we talked about in terms of listening, empathy, accountability, and decisiveness. Okay, she said, I just got 3 copies. Well,
thank you for your support, Amanda.
Yeah.
And there's an Audible version too. If you don't want to read, you can just listen to it as you're driving. So
it's also available on Kindle for those of you who prefer purchasing through Kindle. It's on Kindle as well.
There you go. All the way. So don't miss out at all. So I really do hope, again, you all will share this link with others who missed tonight's conversation. For those of you who are in the replay, let us know where you tuning in from. Give us your city and state. And for those of you who are new to the platform, I invite you to subscribe to Conversations with Nicole. We are here Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, focused on mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities specifically. We will not be on Wednesday because I got an event, but I will be at the Black and Brown Men's Mental Health event coming up on this coming Sunday at 2:30 p.m. at FAMU Grand Ballroom. Mental Health Council of the Big Bend is putting this on. This is our, I think, 4th annual. And we will be hosting dinner as well as breakout sessions. Antonio will serve as one of our moderators for the breakout sessions. We have some giveaways, including some free counseling sessions. Antonio has offered to give away a few of those. And we have some other clinicians. Aaron will be there as well. Nick Range, Drake Gunning, Alonzo Morris. So all of these are local Black counselors and therapists that are here in the Tallahassee area. So it's going to be a great time for the men to come together and engage with one another. So tell a friend, tell a brother, a father, a uncle, a cousin, a son, they need to be at this event. Again, it's free. We would like folks to register. You can go to the Mental Health Council of the Big Bend's Facebook page, as well as my social media page, because I've been putting it out as well. But there is a link for you to register, but you can just show up as well. So it's going to be a great time. All right, Marcus, great broadcast. Like, share, subscribe. Marcus is my my wingman too sometimes, so I appreciate you so much. All right, and Aaron said, can't wait for it, indeed. All right, again, Antonio, Rebecca, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you. All the best with the book. Y'all get the book, because we need to be listening. We need to be empathetic. We need to be accountable, and we need to be decisive, especially the men. All right. All right. Love y'all. Have a good one. We'll see y'all soon.
Take
Bye.
care.